Leader of the Salt City Strangers, Mr. Chris Hoffman. Oh my God, so fantastic.
All right, let's get this thing
This is like my basement. This is just people. This is people that come and hang out. You guys can come and hang out at my house and watch us do this sort of stuff.
Welcome to the basement. Hi, welcome to the Salt City Strangers panel. I am your host and moderator, JC Carter, host of World 322, the world's greatest comic book podcast. Last year, we, in conversation on the podcast, we got into the concept of the 50-state initiative that the Avengers did a few years ago in the comic books. And I mentioned there was supposed to be a Mormon, Utah superhero Avengers group. And we started making jokes about what would that group be like. And then my good friend Lewis Black, the Esquire, said, hey, there's a comic book out there about that called Salt City Strangers. I said, oh, is that what that's about? And then I reached out to these guys to bring them on the show and found out, yes, that's what it's all about. It's a lot of fun. So let's get everybody to introduce themselves going down the road here.
Hi, I'm Josh Butterfield. This is my first time speaking, so I'm very, very nervous. But I'm so glad you guys could come to our panel. Sometimes I write, and sometimes I do this. And thank you, that's me.
So, Chris Hoffman, creator of the Salt City Strangers, artist on the first book, inker, colorist, do all of the, pretty much. Josh told me that for the con and for the book, it pretty much fixes the two things. He says, you had 2 jobs to do at the con, and it's the same for the comic, you have 2 jobs. Think of everything and do everything. Why can't you just take care of your 2 jobs?
It's 2 jobs.
It's just 2 jobs. And my other job is find kink people, since we're in the Salt City Stranger one, to come and help and collaborate with the book. And that's a lot of the people on the panel here that I really appreciate. And actually a lot of people in the audience too.
Hi, I'm Mark Avo. I write with the Big Shiny Robot. And I just would not leave them alone or go away. And now I get to ink. We're Salt City Strangers and do a little writing. It's a lot of fun.
I'm Jeremy Gates, co-author. I get to hang out with these crazy guys 2 or 3 times a week, and this is what we do, and this is what we love.
Mr. Gates, could you scoot your microphone over so that fine-looking gentleman over there gets a piece? Oh, you guys have already worked it out?
Yeah, we have.
Never mind. I'm sorry. Sorry for the distraction.
Yeah.
Please continue.
We have a moderator. Will you leave that?
What are you're just trying to direct this whole thing, right?
You gotta have a stick and just hit him with it.
Yeah.
That's much easier. My name is McCord Larson. I'm a local writer and film producer. I typically have worked in the film industry and now apparently the comic book industry, and I will be writing a spin-off issue of Deputy Deseret.
Hello, my name is Alex Springer. I also write occasionally for Big Shiny Robot and Slug Magazine, and I'm also fairly new to this. I co-wrote a goal sort of one-shot that's coming out. There's a little bit of a preview in the 3rd issue that's looking quite awesome. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, very nice.
Woo!
So nice to be here.
All right, so things hit big and they hit fast. And the one thing that's interesting about this, very interesting about this whole project to me, is how you funded it. You want to talk about that really quick?
Okay, absolutely. So we realized that it takes, that like any other product, the more money you spend on the production, the better product you get. And ultimately, in order to build a reputation for quality work, not only did the writing have to be good and the stories interesting and the characters entertaining, but it had to have good production value. It had to be on high quality paper, it had to be glossy, and it had to have a nice cover. We couldn't do that without help. So we did what so many people are doing nowadays. We turned to crowdsourcing, or crowdfunding, in which we basically approached Kickstarter and said, we have this dream, here's the start, this is what it would look like in the end, help us. And people said, take our money, give us a comic, and that's the kind of the friendship we have with these people, and it's worked out great. We've now done it for, can I hold these up, moderator?
You may,
Thank
yes.
you. I like to follow the rules.
You know what, why don't you hold those up so that the audience can see them?
What a great idea. That's why he makes the big bucks. So as you can see, we've got 1, 2, and 3, and all 3 of these books have been kickstarted, so been very successful.
Awesome.
I could talk forever, but I'm going to actually take a breather. Go ahead.
I would say that's because you have previous experience in the group with successful Kickstarters.
And being awesome. You're welcome.
We're actually going to have a panel in the gaming panel tomorrow that talks about like exclusively funding on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And how to get this stuff going. And I mean, and that's very important. We were talking about this a little earlier today, so we'll let you in on our conversation. In regards to, it's gotten to the point where it's become easier to do these kind of things. Whether it's get a comic book produced without having to go through one of the major publishers, or get a book put out without having to go through a major publisher. And in my case, getting a radio show out without having to be on the radio. And I think it's become easier and easier, and finding the money somehow is the hardest thing. And unless you're all willing to, go into debt and go broke, the Kickstarter is a great opportunity to get everybody involved and get everybody excited about it. Let's talk about the characters. We've got some fun characters in the Salt City Strangers, and I think some folks would probably like to know a little bit more about them who aren't already intimately familiar with them. So everybody, why don't you take your favorite character and just kind of give us a brief description about it. Nothing too big. But
Why don't you start with Bigfoot?
Okay, I'm going to start with mine, and that is the Son of Bigfoot. And he is my favorite because he epitomizes everything that I, growing up, thought that I wanted to be. So, growing up in the church, wanting to go on a mission, being super excited about that, being super excited to serve my community, my family, and the church that I was raised in. But it's not just that, it's also having this like keen intellect and also being a little bit of an outsider. And so I love that character, and he clicked with me immediately. And yeah, he's great. He's young, he's fun, he's hairy, and he's goofy, and he is the biggest geek of the group. I mean, if there's a fanboy in the group,
Yeah, I agree.
He's already in costume.
Is the fanboy.
He shows up and he's in a suit.
Yeah, he's the fanboy.
A lot of the things, just to add on for him, like one of the things about Bigfoot is that, and I didn't realize this when we created the character, but it has a tie back to Utah lore, that there is a legend that Bigfoot has to do with the curse of Cain. And so, as exuberant as he is for his faith and the stuff that he does, he actually gets the most fear and repulsion from the public, because they're like, hey, he's that guy, gross. So it's this sad thing, but he doesn't let him get him down, man. He's all heart.
Yeah, he doesn't even understand the fact that he's being derided. As far as he's concerned, he's been blessed with these specific looks, and it scares away the bad guys, and people that love him think he's a big teddy bear.
Do we want to go all the way gun?
Yeah, I can kind of weigh in on the goal, since I spent some time thinking very long and hard about what the goal means to the world. But one thing that I think I was kind of inspired, drawn to the goal, was kind of from Ben Edlund's The Tick. He's kind of like, he's this really legitimate superhero. He's really good at what he does, but he has this look to him that kind of, again, kind of like Son of Bigfoot, I think. He looks different than other superheroes might, so he gets kind of a bad rap for that. But that's the thing, is he's really good at what he does. So I've always liked superheroes like that, who have that strong sense of, I guess, their own identity, and they're still really, really good at being superheroes, I guess. So, and I also like again, the tie with Utah as him being like this kind of symbol of the state bird and things like that. And that's kind of the story I wrote, is kind of how he was drawn to Utah because of the history with the seagull. So.
And it is hilarious. It's awesome.
that, and
I had fun.
the fun thing about the goal is he couldn't make it as a hero in California. Right. Utah has more food for him, effectively, so he comes to Utah, much like our state bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So when Chris first started talking to me, he asked me if I knew anything about a Mormon hero / legend, I guess you can say, by the name of Porter Rockwell. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge history buff, whether it be on a global scale, national scale, or local scale. And I've actually written screenplays about Porter Rockwell, and I have fixed other people's screenplays that deal with the character of Porter Rockwell. I'm somewhat of a self-proclaimed expert on the subject, so I think I like fangirled out. Porter Rockwell, oh, I know Porter Rockwell, I love Porter Rockwell.
Yeah, he actually like stopped like the HeroClix game he was playing at and like came in over to talk, and he's like, "Oh, hang on, it's my turn," and then he'd go back and then he'd come back and we talk about it some more.
Yeah, so I was really very excited, and so Deputy Deseret is one of the few characters that has been essentially kind of pushed aside in the main books right now. There's not a whole lot that we currently know about him. I just ran my my outline to Chris earlier today even. So we're just kind of scratching the surface with his character and his background, where he comes from. We're finding that he has deeper ties and roots than originally anticipated, dating all the way back to the original Salt City Strangers back in 1869. And we're having a lot of fun with him, and it's going to be a fun ride, I think.
JC, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, respectful and dashing looking. So, the important thing as we're going through these, there's a voice. A character in a comic book has a specific voice, and there has to be a consistency in that voice, or people start, they kind of lose interest in the character. It's like, I don't really know who this guy is. So the important thing is we're talking to these people who are so creative is, do they understand, do they feel the voice? And talking to both of these gentlemen, they get the voice. And when they tell us about their visions for what these stories look like, we're laughing. We're laughing so hard, we're crying, and we're thinking, this is perfect. You know these characters better than we do. You've captured the voice and the feel and the tone of the comic book. And those are powerful things. And it's hard to find. So we've been incredibly lucky that these guys have stepped forward and said, hey, let us be part of this, because they're feeling passionate about it, and it shows. So anyway, that has nothing to do with the characters other than their character, which
No,
is
it's awesome.
top shelf.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so Dead Mother, we love the Dead Mother because she is mystical and we don't know a whole lot about her. The fun part about this, though, is Josh, Mark, Chris, and I sit down for hours and hours and hours and hours and talk about these characters and who they are. And so we have a tremendous backstory of who they are, and what we're trying to do is put their personality into comic book form. But Deputy Deseret, Dead Mother, to give a quick background, she lost her children. We'll get into that a little bit deeper later. But with her children, she helped with their scouting project. She knows the scout handbook inside and out. She can tie knots, she can do anything and everything that comes from the scout handbook. Because she loses her family, she feels this need to serve. And one thing that I don't know if we mentioned, but all of our characters are volunteers. And so she volunteers, and she's kind of the mother of the group. She takes care of the group, but she's also the voice of reason most of the time.
I was going to say, when I first met you guys, and I said, what is it about the Strangers that makes sense for Utah as superheroes? And they said, well, it's volunteerism. This state, especially if you've been living here for any amount of time, you'll know is huge on volunteerism. Whether it be within the LDS Church or outside the LDS Church, everyone pitches in, everyone helps out with all kinds of different things, from the small levels to the big, which is an example here with all the volunteers at this Comic-Con. So what better state to have a team of superheroes that gets together and does it without pay, just because they know it's the right thing to do, just like Spider-Man. And that's what the Strangers do.
Even though they may not be very good at it.
Right. Art only gets you so far, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'll talk about Golden Spike in a second, but we've done something kind of unique with this comic. We've gotten the first three issues done, but we've also spun off and done individual comics, kind of a day in the life cross-section of a person's life for all the individual characters. Den Mothers is without a doubt the darkest. And it was actually written by a very talented gentleman handsome gentleman also. But it's really interesting because there's a tone in the book that's very light, but we don't want it to be goofy or slapstick. There are funny parts to it, but there are serious parts to it, and you see the spectrum on the characters, and hers is the darkest. She's the darkest character in that she's, in fact, we should have thought of that. But it's the darkest. You should have done the Den Mother. What? Anyway, well, already.
He's the moderator. He's good.
That's right, but he actually wrote this great story, but it's super dark. Anyway, that has nothing.
It was based on a Weird Al Yankovic song.
Right.
So that's funny.
Yep.
Right?
Was it really?
Yeah.
Nature Trail to Hell.
Yeah, Nature Trail to Hell.
Mm-hmm.
There's a homicidal maniac who finds a Cub Scout troop and hacks up 2 or 3 in every scene.
Yep.
That was my initial concept.
Yeah.
And from there, it was, how do I create this character? And for Den Mother, she was a really important character to me. I volunteered with the Scouts for over 7 years now. And primarily with the Cub Scouts. I have a lot of fun with those guys, and I do a lot of that. I'm a Cub Master right now. I was a Webelos Den leader for several years, and I also volunteer with at the district level and the council level for a lot of adult trainings as well. And I know
None of us knew this about you.
And I know women like her. I work with these women, and I talk to these women, and so I understood this character probably the most. That she definitely motivated me. In fact, when you guys came and Chris was sitting there diligently drawing all the characters to give us little cards and characters, I said, "Well, I need a den mother. I gotta have a den mother. She's my character."
Right, and Gull's a lot easier to draw, so I was like, oh, well, here's
some Gulls.
Here's a stick figure of the hat that is Den Mother. Yep, I'll do Golden Spike. So Golden Spike is the leader of the group, and he's a very unique character because he's black, but it's not about him being an African American. It's about him being a crime fighter and a hero and a member of the community. And when people hear that there's this black member of of this crime fighting thing, they're like, "Oh wow, that's the thing, huh? That's the gimmick." And it's like, no. That's what he is, but what he does is what defines him. And what he does is so you're all X-Men fans, I assume. Cyclops, one of the most boring characters, right? But he sets the standard, right?
Throw the tomatoes directly at Josh. If there's any Cyclops fans out there.
I will fight you on this.
Cyclops was right.
That's right.
Cyclops was right.
The point is, Wolverine is only extreme when compared to Cyclops. The other characters are only interesting and diverse when you compare them to the standard, which is Cyclops. That's what Golden Spike is. Golden Spike is the backbone of the group. He's also the most normal and the most, he thinks the things we're all thinking. He is your voice when you read the comic because you're like, why would we do this? This is dangerous. He thinks that every time. You don't get into anyone else's head, but you believe this guy. He's the most, he's us. He's you. If you were a superhero and you were afraid for your life every dang time you went out, that's him. But he does it anyway, and that's what makes it cool. That's what makes it powerful.
See, he's also the most conflicted about what he's doing. I mean, Son of Bigfoot loves to fight crime. He loves to be with his friends. He loves to hang out. He loves to geek out. He loves to imitate his heroes, the Faithful Four. The Gull, he's made for that. I mean, he's the hero. The Den Mother, she's always going to be there because of her tragic past. And the Deputy Deseret, he's Deputy freaking Deseret. I mean,
yeah, but he was kind of pushed into the position.
He's pushed into it. But
some heroes, rise up to the challenge, and others have to be asked. And he definitely is one that had to be asked.
Asked or
Forced,
pushed,
dragged by their nose,
kicking and
rings.
screaming and gnashing of teeth.
yeah, but what I was going to say is that Spike himself, he's always thinking to himself, what are we doing? But then, we need to jump in and get action. And then why are we even doing this if we're not getting credit for it?
Yep.
But at the same time, he says, do we even want to get credit for this? Because this is like volunteerism. He's very conflicted internally about being a superhero.
Right. Well, I can take the Faithful Four. We mentioned this. They have a rival Catholic team. So there's a team of Catholics who are better funded. They are the people.
They work out of the Vatican.
They work out of the Vatican. They are released by they're sent out by the Pope himself.
They get paid.
They get paid. They have the neck. They can, if they feel like something's bad enough, they can just fly in the tactical nuke. They don't even show up. Like the strangers, some of them share an apartment building. An apartment.
And they drive in a van to pull up. These
Right.
guys are straight out of the low class.
And there's part of the storyline why that's happening, and you read about that in the first book. But the Faithful Four, it's Sister Sarah Slaughter, Father Maloney, Kami no Shimobi, who's the ninja, one of my favorite characters, and Grandmaster Payne, who's a Knights Templar. So, Sister Sarah Slaughter, she looks exactly like you'd think, is this warrior nun. And Father Maloney, he looks a lot. I pulled the inspiration from, I lost his name now. Who played the Joker in this last?
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. He did this terrible movie that was originally called The Sin Eater. Oh, The Order.
The Order.
The Order. I pulled that character. Yep. Oh, it's a terrible movie, but it's such a good movie. It looks cool.
It
was an okay movie. It still should have been called The Sin Eater.
It was a pilot for a TV show, was basically it. Like, they left it open and looked like it was going to be a TV show. But anyway, this is the people, like, there's
that
this...
show.
the strangers, like, Spike kind of covets these guys. Like, why do they get all the credit? Why I'm doing all this hard work and they have a better PR department, and this is what we get. And then Son of Bigfoot loves these guys. He's the president of their fan club, and he writes all their stuff about their wiki and whatnot. And they're like, you're on the rival team. Why are you such a big fan? And so it's sort of getting to that, like, Utah rivalry. Whenever Notre Dame comes to town and plays BYU, it is T-shirts and people going crazy. And so we wanted to kind of play off of that storyline, and it's going to continue out. We've got so many issues of stuff. The next issue, you get introduced to them in 3, but in 4, you really see the strangers and the Faithful Four interact, and it's hilarious.
Another important element is that there's no side taking. Like, we don't say that that one team is better than the other. They have different backgrounds, they have different fundings, they do things completely differently. But it's not an editorial on like one's good, one's bad. It's just like 2 different groups trying to do the same thing. One of them's getting all kinds of money, and like, you know that they're spending the nights in the fancy hotels and all the girls dig them, and the other guys, no one even knows who they are. So it's just kind of a cool contrast.
One has a ninja, the other one has a cowboy.
Right.
That is pretty.
It's kind of the same thing.
That's an epic battle, right?
Kind of the same thing. So let's geek out about comics for a minute and talk about where some of the influences for the overall pieces come from and how you discovered your way to sequential panel art, as it were.
Josh, I have this huge collection of drawing, how to draw comics. So I've got all the anime ones, I've got all of the Stan Lee ones, which why I would buy one from Stan Lee. He never drew comics, so like, who cares what he thinks about the way you draw?
Because I invented comic books.
And the internet.
But Josh challenged me. He was like, have you ever drawn anything? And like, for a couple of days I was really sad about it. I was like, no. And so I did a giveaway comic called Banana Panic, which is about a talking monkey who's a super spy. And so getting the idea from that one, the original idea from this really did come from that Avengers comic that you were talking about, where it was the Utah. They mentioned the LDS team once in passing.
Totally in passing, yeah.
And they never see them. And like, what would those guys look like? And then there was also this review for Constantine, the movie, with and it was Roger Ebert, who said, why is it that when you're fighting Satan in a movie, it's always Catholics who come and fight him? Where are the Episcopalians? You know, where are the Protestants? Why aren't they out fighting Satan? And I said, you know what, where are the Mormons? What would that look like? And that was the seed that actually this grew out of. And a huge love for the Mystery Men comics.
Cool. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I'd kind of like to talk about that. I talked a little bit about the Tick, Ben Edlund the Tick. I kind of love that universe, and kind of back to Mystery Men as well. When you can kind of pull the kind of funniness about guys getting together of their own free will, dressing up in strange costumes and hitting the streets to beat up bad guys. The funniness of that is just it always hits me pretty strongly. So that's one of the reasons I like this team, is because they have that going for them, but then at the same time though, it's not just an entirely goofy thing. Like they're all pretty complex characters, I think, and I think in a lot of ways, and this is kind of I think why I like comic books too, to kind of rant and get into that bigger question, is in a lot of ways I think we can see ourselves in these heroes, that they might do some things better than us, or they might have achieved something better than us, but we still feel like we can kind of be that person. Not literally going out and dressing up and fighting crime, although some people, I think there was a fad of that a while ago, a couple years ago. But I think to that idea that there are these kind of flawed people that every day try to do good things, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes you're ridiculed for it, but there's still, you get up every day and kind of do it. So that's what I think.
I'd also approach it, when we were talking about this and we talk about what we liked and what we wanted to see in a comic, all I could think about is the stuff I didn't like. And that's
a lot.
And it's like, and quite honestly, that's most of the universe. But I'm thinking about the comics I like, and when I was growing up, I worked in a comic book store, and I bought and sold comics, I did comic ordering, and all that other stuff. And I didn't really like Marvel Comics.
Shame on you.
I know. I'm in a Comic-Con. You don't admit that. I'm probably not going to live out the night. But it was nice
You're
meeting
gonna
you.
get lynched if you say Frank Miller's overrated. I mean, there's gonna be like one point here you're gonna cross a line.
Yeah.
I'm not going to cross that line. But I will say, whenever I picked up a Marvel comic, I honestly felt like the characters were somewhat two-dimensional. I liked DC Vertigo. I liked Dark Horse. I liked indie comic books. I liked those things because when you pick them up, it's like, this comic art kind of sucks. The story is written by this young who no one's ever heard of, but man, I'm finding out about this character was cool. And so I kept thinking, I don't want to write Marvel comics the way Marvel Comics writes Marvel Comics, because to be honest with you, and I know this makes me an outsider, they don't really focus on the story a ton. They focus on storylines, but what motivates these people to do these things? If you don't know that, I don't care what they do. Save the world, schmave for the world. Why are they doing it?
His uncle was killed and it was his fault. And he learned a great lesson that with great power comes great responsibility. What else do you need?
How many times do Chris and I have to convince you to read Superior Foes of Spider-Man?
Oh yeah.
That's the book I always think of when it comes to this.
That's a huge inspiration for this. Is that book? It's genius. So it's rough to have something that good to be, but yeah, Superior Foes is amazing. I think McCordy's going to say something.
Oh yeah, no. I actually wrote my first screenplay. I wrote when I was like 11 years old, and it was a spec script for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Nice.
And I kind of forgot about it. And every now and then I dig up my special box. My parents had the foresight to keep that script, which now is signed by Jason David Frank, which is awesome because I found it. But I was kind of in a point in my life where I was kind of just treading water, is how my wife put it. We weren't really going anywhere. Dead-end jobs, our school was kind of at a halt, and there wasn't a whole lot going on. And I picked up a book called Astonishing X-Men, written by Joss Whedon, a little no-name guy.
Yeah. Never heard of him.
Yeah,
Joss who?
It's too bad. I mean, I think he really could have made something of himself. But it was gifted, Astonishing X-Men, and I got 3 pages into it, and there's a scene where Cyclops wakes up and he's next to Emma Frost, and Jean had just recently passed away again. and Wolverine's sitting at the foot of his bed, and Wolverine just says, what part of the grievance process is this? Denial? And Cyclops blasts him through the wall, and then walks out in his boxer shorts and says, that healing factor is going to come in real handy real quick, and he blasts him again. And I don't know what it was about that scene, but I thought, this is awesome. I want to write stories like this. And so, so I actually moved to New York to write comic books, and that failed in a flame of glory. But I did make some pretty good contacts. I'm the opposite. I rarely venture outside of the Marvel Universe. But I realized at the time who was writing things, and it was like Peter David, who is a New York Times bestselling author, and Orson Scott Card at the time was writing Ultimate Iron Man, and Joss Whedon was writing X-Men, and I thought, I'm going to have to take a different route into this because these are already established writers. And I wrote to C.B. Cebulski, who I was in contact with at the time. He's a talent manager at Marvel. And I said, if I have to take the Whedon route, then that's what I'm going to do. And I ended up kind of stuck in film for a long time, and now I'm just starting to get back into the comic book side of things, and so it's coming full circle. But that's kind of how I got started.
On that note, that director's cut of that book is one of the ones I use to learn how to write a script.
Oh man, it's
It's a terrific book.
so
Just
awesome.
an aside.
I think I use that too for the same thing. Because like when I was kind of thinking, okay, I want to write a comic book, and how do I do it? Like, how do you sit down and do it? It was the Astonishing X-Men director's cut, and Dark Horse has a really cool, like, just, so you want to write comic books?
Dark Horse!
It was like, it's writing comics 101, so, yeah. Sorry. Okay.
As an aside, yeah.
Who was that?
There was somebody else talking about Dark Horse earlier. So, yeah, on the line of Whedon, one of the things that struck me about this concept was the world you were creating. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the world. Much like Whedon with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he had the Hellmouth. And she was there She was brought to the Hellmouth. All of the other characters were eventually brought to the Hellmouth to fight, to defend the world against what was coming out of it. Utah has a lot of those stories that circulate around among our popular legends. I'll give you a good example that I was taught growing up in Utah County. And I'm just going to tell you the way I heard it. Whether you want to agree or disagree is up to you, but I'll just tell you how I heard it. If you've ever been down to Utah County, you know where the Provo Temple is. The thumbtack on the hill, the Provo Temple. And that's what it looks like. I know it's supposed to be a wedding cake, but it looks like a thumbtack. Anyway, right up past that is a small canyon that we love to go and climb in called Rock Canyon. One night we were hanging out at the Denny's at 2 in the morning because that's what you do in Utah County. And a friend said, hey, let's go climbing up Rock Canyon right now. I got something cool to show you guys. We're like, okay. So middle of the night, pitch black, we go climbing up Rock Canyon. And we get up there, we get up to a certain point, and he goes, all right, I can't take you guys any higher because we had some people who were really huffing and puffing behind us. And he said, but I'm going to tell you guys a story about why this place is called Squaw Peak, why that mountain over there is called Squaw Peak, and why this is so such an important place. He said that the Native Americans who lived here before the Mormon settlers got here were protecting a vortex of power that comes out of this canyon. And when the Mormons, the settlers, were coming deeper and closer and closer to the canyon, the Braves went out to fight them, and when they got word that they were losing, so all of their wives, all the squaws, effectively climbed up the cliffs in the dark, in the middle of the night, and then leapt off to seal the vortex with their blood and protect it. And he said, and that's why the temple is down at the foot of the mountain. That's the kind of legends I grew up with in Utah County. And I think the further away you are from BYU, the crazier it gets, and the legends that you get. But these are the kind of legends I got, and I could see some of that coming out with your concepts behind the main villain and the main bad guys and everything. You want to?
Oh yeah, the urban legends are a huge part of this because we've got so many of them in Utah. You've got like the Bear Lake Monster. You've got there's always something just a little Utah about
all
them.
All the lakes interconnected legend.
Yeah. There's one about the hoppity lady who hops around the Salt Lake Cemetery.
Oh yeah.
And so she's in a wedding dress, only has one leg, so it's a ghost that hops around.
It's very sad.
But it's like a hopping ghost. I mean, it's just like a
It's a sadly hopping
It could
ghost.
have been like really scary, but it's just a little Utah. Or like we talked about in the first book, the Emo's Grave. So it's our version of Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
That's another one. Yeah. There's so many here that it's
Hobbitown, what's the place?
Hobbitville, Allen Park.
Yep.
That's by Westminster College.
Yeah.
What's the one? Gilgal Gardens.
Go Garden. Yeah, that's a good one.
All of that sort of stuff. Yeah, we're going to deal with pretty much all of these at some point.
Yeah, you know what? You mentioned Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I can't believe we didn't mention this. It was a big. I mean, I'm a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, but that's
something redeeming about it.
Something. There's one thing that you cannot hate about me. Unless you hate that, then anyway.
It was the first episode of the second season when Buffy's not around and all the White Hats are trying to take care of the vampires by themselves.
Yeah.
I watched that beginning 10 minutes over and over again to kind of get the idea of this. Was because they're doing a terrible job and it looks super dramatic and everything's awesome, and then like it's Scott Evil who throws the spike at the very end, and he does this awesome thing, and it just kind of falls off the side of a gravestone as the vampire gets away. That's what I wanted this to do.
We're having to learn how to be, monster fighters is the idea. And a lot of times when you have a hero like Buffy, or you have a hero in this case like the Catholic group, they make it look so easy. Oh, I can do that. And then you find out it's not so easy, and I like that concept as well. Let's go ahead, and we've got a few minutes, let's go ahead and take some questions from the audience. If you guys have questions, if we haven't already beaten this topic to death.
Please.
And let's find out what you want to hear about.
You in the front.
The handsome man in the front.
What's the future for Salt City Strangers? Are you guys going to keep doing Kickstarters with these spin-offs, or are those going to be Kickstarters, or how's that going to be different?
I'm waiting for a tip of the hat from the boss man over here. So the idea is, even if we could fund this every issue just because we're filthy rich, we'd still want to do Kickstarter because it's a way to, not only is it, crowdfunding the project, but it also gets the product directly into the hands of the people that want it without any muss or fuss. It's a great system, and we'd like to continue using it. But we have so many cool stories, and we've got so many creative people that are coming on. We've got a story arc that's at least 10 issues long, which is at least 1, maybe 2 trade paperbacks, and then we've got these awesome spin-offs, and then each of these spin-offs turns into its own comic. We want this to become the center of the Buffyverse. We want this to be the center of all these other cool stories. The Gold comic suddenly spins off and it's its own thing. People are going crazy for the Catholic team because they're awesome. So what's their story? Well, we're planning on spinning that off. But ideally, this becomes the core of a very large, kind of a multiverse in which all this stuff comes together, and that's the plan. And we're just going to keep doing it the way we're doing it. The only thing that's going to change is we continue to find new talent as far as artists and inkers and colorists and stuff like that, and fantastic writers. So that's the only thing that's really going to change.
Well, there's a twofold reason behind that. One is it's great to work with talented people, but 2, there's only so many hours in a day, and we have a lot of stories we want to tell, and we want to have the stories come out on a more frequent basis.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, all we really care about when we're looking for new talent is, first of all, do they capture the tone, do they capture the feel, and do they have the voice? And sometimes it's a bullseye, and these 3 gentlemen here, sometimes it's not, and we've had to have those conversations too, and they're just a little bit harder to have, but still very important. We got to preserve the comic.
I'm sorry, you suck.
Have you tried golf because writing doesn't work for you? I don't have those conversations. I need Chris to.
Maybe frisbee golf would be good for you. Okay, another question.
How do you get this marketed so that you can actually make some money to quit your day jobs and just get it out of the time? That's the $1 million question.
That's what every indie comic person would like to know, and we will tell you for $1 million.
There was a keynote at the San Diego Comic-Con that was done by I think it was the president of Image Comics.
Yes.
And he talked about how it is never easy. It's never been easier to create comics. Like, we do this all on our own. We found our own printer. We have our own distribution network. We have our own artists and writers. We didn't have to ask anybody to actually go and do this.
Our own ads with our own group of friends.
Yep, we did. And right now there's a lot of them that are just solids that we're working out with people. So
we're the garage rock band of comic books.
But he also mentioned it's never been harder to get paid for it. It is such a proliferation. We're in that stage with comic books where the music industry was in, and is still in. Like, they're still figuring that out. Like a very good guitarist, somebody who. It used to be so easy. Like, you would get, not easy, but I mean the path was clear. What you would do is like you would
because there was only one path.
Because there was only one path. You'd get good at guitar, and then you'd get discovered by an agent. You'd sign a major record deal, and you get paid 3 cents a CD when it came out. You know what I mean?
And you die young.
And then you argued with your place, and you changed your name and all that sort of stuff. But with comics now, it's doing the same thing. We can directly market to our own customers. But the thing is, we don't have the economies of scale that Marvel has, where they say, well, it only costs us 8 cents a book because we're going to have 150,000 of them printed. So that's what we're trying to strike, is trying to say how many books, how often need to be sold, how many different places, because the margin actually on physical books is not amazing for us.
It's non-existent, essentially.
It's getting better, you know what I mean? Like as we're going along, but as we're getting the art going better, that costs more. The costs seem to go up to fill in the void.
To consider it anything besides a passion project at this point would be nonsensical.
Yeah, we do have it. We do know how much it's going to take. I graduated with my MBA from Westminster in 2012, and so building growth models is something that I do. And then it's just kind of depressing to do it for the comics. So the thing is, there are higher margin things. I mean, like T-shirts and whatnot. What would be really nice on this is to prove that we can do this, and then be signed by someone else to say, you guys do a good job on this. Boom Studios, somewhere else, Dynamite, you know what I mean, one of the smaller places, prove that we can do this and then move up and then still keep this on is something that we do ourselves.
But there's other things involved too that a lot of indie creators period don't understand, and that is how to find the people that want what you have. And there are all kinds of tricks to that. One of the things that we do is we do podcasts. One of the things we do is we meet interesting people and talk to them and share our
We do
stories
panels
with
at
them.
Comic-Cons.
Yeah, we do panels at Comic-Cons.
We're going to start. We haven't started yet.
Yeah, we gotta get one of those going.
But those are all just typical tricks that your normal salesperson would use, but on a larger basis. So if you do those on a smaller scale and you know who your target audience should be, you can expand your marketing. But it's going to be baby steps with an independent project.
I'd also like to answer that another way. The only way this is ever going to get profitable for us is if we get out of the business of doing all the work and we publish it. The publisher on these things can actually make good money. So in other words, all of a sudden we now have an artist that does them regularly, who is known for it. We have writers who do it, that love doing it, that do it regularly, and we publish it. That's the way you get to it. And you become Boom Studios, you become Image. And you've got multiple comic lines, you're popular enough, suddenly you've got people coming to you saying, hey, I'd love for you to run my book. You run the book, they do the work, because all the extra work that goes into doing this stuff is what part of what makes it so unprofitable. But if you can become the person that is simply publishing and distributing them, that's a huge step. And that's where a lot of people need to be. However, that's not fun. So the profitable part of this business is also not fun, and the fun part of this is not terribly profitable. So at some point,
it's like the gift of the Magi.
Yeah, every indie creator you find out on that floor will give you approximately the same answer, unless they're an established artist or writer already and working on their own independent project. And even then, unless they're printing the independent project through Image, or Dark Horse, or Kaboom, or Top Shelf, or Fantagraphics, or Oni Press, if they don't have that sort of pull, and they're just hanging on their own name, it's going to be successful. Jimmy Palmiotti's had some Kickstarter projects for 30 grand, 40 grand, but that's not the kind of money you can live off of. That's
also not
a
the
passion
norm.
project
Yeah.
still.
The thing about this is like what would really help with this is if everybody in here started pestering Ryan Otley about like why hasn't done a cover yet. Don't tell him I said that, but just he loves that.
He's an artist, Alec. Go look for him. Great big signs. Let's finish this off by telling people, hey, I want to buy this book. Where can I find this book?
You can go on the internet and look for it. Chris?
SaltCityStrangers.com, Hoffmangler.com, UndeadSoup.com, or since you guys are already all here, Table Green 9 in Artist Alley.
Come get a Bible.
And you know what? We're doing a game, so we were going to show this. On the covers of these books, these are actual fans of the books. This is the CIO of Westminster College. This is the owner of Black Hat Comics and Sugar House. On this one, on a little bit of a somber note, this is one of my best friends at work. His wife passed away recently, and she really wanted to be on one of the covers of the book. And we had kind of a miscommunication about getting her on number 2, so we made number 3 into a memorial. So you can see inside it says, in memory of Kirsten Ford. And my friend was like brought to tears with how nice the cover turned out on this one. So, but we do this as like an individual, like, this is one of the things we offer that like Marvel doesn't. You can be on the cover of our book. And so what we're doing at our table is we have a form you can fill out and then go get stamps at different booths around the con.
It's like a scavenger.
It's like a scavenger hunt, and then so you can actually get onto the cover. Every stamp is the entry into the drawing. So make sure
around
you do
that floor anyway.
Exactly.
So just stop by us first, get the book.
And I wanted to say, thanks to Ryan Call and to McCord, who does a lot of the work here, making these panels work, and to JC Carter for doing an awesome job and volunteering to moderate this gaggle of idiots here.
Give me something to do.
So, a big round of applause for those guys.
I'd like to thank me for being born primarily, and then also for existing for all these years and doing a great job of it. Thank you, me.
All right.
Oh.
That's it. Anything else you guys want to shout out about? Well, you got a second?
Yeah, no, you guys, down at the end.
You can follow me at Captain Springer on Twitter. Follow me discreetly.
And I'm at McCord Larson on Twitter. It's really original.
Yeah, you want to hear this something like this every week. Undeadsoup.com. We have panels, or we have guests on there that talk about self-publishing video games, comic books, any type of. We get a lot of local artists. We had the Magnetic by Nature people on, Undaunted authors.
I promise it's more entertaining.
It's super.
No,
it's not.
The only,
It really is.
The only thing I want to ask is if you enjoyed our conversation and you're curious about some of these things we talked about for crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, we're doing a Kickstarter-focused panel tomorrow in the game room. A lot of people don't know that panels happen over there, so come down, check us out. If you've got Kickstarter questions, bring them. We, a lot like JC does, we really like to focus on answering questions you may have about doing this stuff. So thank you.
Awesome.
And thank you, JC.
All right, that's all my bladder will stand. So give it up for the Salt City Strangers.
Yeah, thanks guys all for coming.
Enjoy the rest of the convention.
Woohoo! Don't be a stranger.
Thank you.
I want to be. It's Chris's line. I feel bad stealing it. I feel a little bit.